Hello, species value nature system. Regarding Koreas, the Korea as a bond to species value, relationship to itself. In other words, it's recorded in relationship to the militarization, military conflicts, threats, and leading up to it, negotiations, fact treatment nature by that. Relationship to the phrase mission creep, and relationship to what George Washington left entrenched here for us to counter. See, these are natures of agreements with hundreds of nations shared policing of ourselves with the slavery of our landscape originally installed, like American as and Native American rights, tactically degraded, tactically divided and conquered, tactically, multi-front simultaneous impositions upon their fact treatment nature in relationship to what everyone was is breaching method maintained, blaming on others and on selves. The actual causes of negative value nature progression is tied to those positions, which in relationship to the physical pathology of wars and of those kind of differences, that was his per reliances upon pseudo-sciences and originally stayed criminally foreign influence in every modern nation because it came in from semi-ancient times, knowing that it was going to fit up to positions, tactically denatured justifications of them and defenses of themselves, fact treatment nature wise, in relationship to the originally revealed nature of internation sciences and of nation sciences, of states area sciences, and of area sciences as originally valued before criminal foreign influences, tactically built to stay perpetually blamed on others and on themselves, using fact treatment nature relationships. They built lie progression, cover up nature in engineering of roles, blaming and needing to blame the causes of things like slavery, like fact treatment nature slavery laws against everyone of every color, including our founders who didn't have free speech because of those laws. Because if everyone didn't stay their roles, because they knew that, because what was is too, all hundreds of modern nations sharing markets, positions, and policing of ourselves from recorded influenced by criminally foreign influenced zoning laws and slavery laws and uses of tactically denatured relationships to nature. Even now further that they built into 2-family houses, 3-family houses. They did this for peripheral and vertical people stacking that they knew would cause a negative value nature relationship to nature that nature would demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, including with and as the value of lie progressions. Lie progression cover up natures. Then, for example, in relationship to the impositions upon urban and suburban areas distinctly and non-distinctly. To counter it requires a fact treatment nature counter to it, per what is urban and suburban collusion through systems, especially with medical corruption, recorded systemic, tied to areas corruption, with the courts and the prisons and the internation police and the policing of stores, juxtaposed with overt criminal enterprises, and with other nations like as legalized ones, just as knaves, left like that. And that left forced, negotiated, not told about. In other words, our Constitution is still in the hands of a breaching organized crime that was entrenched here since before our founders, with and has a database illusion stacking rule. Since I was a kid, this is tied to the identity theft crimes too. Because the courts were raised as victim predators needing to hide lie progressions. They do it by offensively pretending to believe things like drugs were behind the witch trials, knowing that they're dishonest with themselves and others. But see, but they don't follow the rules to get away with it. And they break the rules and stack database illusions and don't let that report it. They forge names, they switch sequences in databases. See, this was as their motives too, reported hiding things from presidents. This was as their motives too for roles with agencies lifted originally in state, criminally foreign influence, there and here. And all roles as pseudo-identities. So they're only capable of going into critically for the bond of our species forsaken since semi-ancient times. Just reminds, going in like thinking like sophistication is to knock communism, which is recorded in the same trap that capitalism is in. A self-maintained breaching method, tool, concept used by pseudo-sciences, and all this juxtaposed overt and criminal enterprises, legalized ones, and unrealized, juxtaposed to keep the Constitution abridged, so it's no joke. My movies and cartoons won't wait about this. That's why I'm talking about it first before, because it's too slow. The devil knew that because they stole ancient revelations. The yin yang is about much. So much because it's simultaneously painting 3 values as nature, 5 values as nature, simultaneously painting what, why, and how a clear identity of value is coming through white and black, and within it has the value of all colors. The colors are the organs of the clear before what's here. In other words, there are 3 natures of volume of the complete identity of space. Allah, this is science. Revealed, English was revealed to teach. Before it was criminally re-engineered. And with the yin-yang. This was internation science that humanity's bond realized before it was criminally re-engineered. They couldn't believe that anyone would forget how to make evolution. They would look at the people stacking the slavery of our founders' laws on them, too, recorded tactically, not let told, by liars to themselves and to others, pretended as experts, knowing that there are obligations for them to teach about the fact, treatment, nature, slavery of our founders, and not to pretend that they were slaveholders, not just roles, like in other words, forced as slaves too. The only reason there was a semi-difference because they only started fighting with forced enemies. People that were to their slavery were their forced allies. Because we have obligations for freedom of speech simultaneously with freedom of religion. Also recorded tactically, each of the sciences are with tactically space maintained criminal foreign influences, roles with database solution stacking, tied to an exploitation of the standing, what they did, engineering positions in relationships to families where everyone was in victim predator roles. And so no one could explain it without proofs that are requiring collusion with the branches with what they don't even understand, even through criminal roles with it. Because it was how everyone was raised, victim predators. So we have to understand how the sciences are criminally foreign influence. We have to understand how each side doesn't know how to come to a meeting or what could be or what should be. How we need to make the means for bricks of a quality they don't even make for more because it's not, it costs too much. The nation, especially with bombs, have the obligations right with every nation. The whole species agrees. They can make a business together real cheap. Everyone, to make those bricks, and like for example, of the kind of quality keep water, the whole world was tactically denatured. They tactically denatured the Native American landscape to cause negative value nature progressions, to cause them reliant upon value nature systems and sophistication with the sciences only realized criminally foreign influenced. Space maintained that way, now online too. And with and as database relationships that were monitored in relationship to the value of these laws. So no one would break them because everyone was a slave. So they're using passions in the recording, using identity crimes, where and how the branches are recording still preventing people from making police reports, torturing them by stacking lies and pretending that's their right to do that. And then just keep doing that through time. Because they've been doing this since they were kids with the same grammar school with the principal sex offender just sentenced. In other words, he's juxtaposed with other natures of drug criminals, evidence criminals, with various natures of courts that were facilitated to that through areas as victims, as victim predators, defending fact-shaping nature, relationship to breach precedents, breaching weapons, using courts and using fact-shaping nature as weapons through time. There is no justification of science pretended. There's no means but as a liar to pretend that science could look at people stacking and knowing our history and pretending to be a history expert at the same time and not see what they did in Hartford, Connecticut, right between New York and Boston. This is where our history begins. This is where George Washington left overt slavery in the North, and still in New York and Boston, and still being cultivated, blamed on others, non-selves, for other ulterior interests that were breaching method maintained, to maintain everyone, for example, blaming things like money, things that aren't true always, all as roles and natures of opinions, preventing science, which is correlation nature. Not just three ways, but three ways each way. So in other words, we're needing a quality of fact-shaping nature time treatments not being let to, because this is an engineering to maintain forever nature, invested, incentivized, hurt, criminally foreign influence with delusions, tactical pseudo education, blaming on other causes on others, on themselves. They've premise treatments, pretended natural sensibilities, just so that they can get away with that at states and areas levels into branch in collusion with other nations, not through one but through all, against our leaders' voices in fact-shaping nature, then forced to collusion. How many times did the president ask for the fake news to be corrected? Because the fake news is recorded consciously, pretending that they're just trying to hide from fake news, instead of just correcting it, because they know that also shows crime methods that are consciously juxtaposing natures of crimes, not reported, and they're not, because the courts have been with identity crime stacking lies that they need to hide from agencies, with agencies though too. That's also why we have to examine how the Trinity is to all parts of itself a Trinity, even each part of the Trinity. There's an inherent nature of volume to it, the semi-nature of the complete identity of space. There's an active nature of volume to it, as the same body of value, and there is a progressive nature of volume to it, as the same identity of progression, as existence that already was and is gaining the value of immediate space nature and of overall space nature. There are proofs that the expansion of space is through nuclear energy, and all our energy as negative value nature. In other words, as Earth's value, Lethe of Hades, being forced from here. There are proofs that the only way to make positive environmental change, there are proofs too that they're consciously criminal, other juxtaposed for the same method, pretending they care against environmental change because they want to keep obfuscated correlation nature, which is about an evolution. What causes it is evolution is positive environmental change. So they want to imply that environmental change is bad. They want, because of the nature, we have a nature of relationship. What do you think? The longer you keep people stacking tactically denatured, water's put underground, everything flattened out, less and less worms in the ground each year. More, just all the stuff taken away. All the whole nature of the soil was all tactically denatured before our nature was here too. And our nation. Before our nation, there was already internation. England was the face of it here in Connecticut. But England was the face of it through what was this to the extortion of England there and to the extortion of everyone here. The fact cheating nature slavery are everyone here. They're passionately keeping that, pretended not realized, to keep fact cheating nature hurt because there's an exploitation of it consciously juxtaposed. Engineered. Lie progression, cover up nature needs and roles and tools to all areas per what is not just interbranch, intermilitary, internation police here. It's between that to keep them with roles like that with the trade center, with negotiations, in relationship to the value nature system. We are a value nature system. Because we are values within all values nature, but values nature is before, also beyond temporary space nature. In other words, controlling it. In other words, beyond our control, the nature of what is positive progression, also positive onto itself, and or negative onto itself. That's the difference between what causes evolution as positive environmental change or negative environmental change caused as negative value nature progressions. See, but that's a conversation about correlation nature, which is about you look at the people stacking, you look at the convictions in the minds of the sciences and of the stewards, and you see they're all victim predators. Then you look up to what, and you see they're all victim predators. You have to, you remove from what is not true always, and you know exceptions. And this is how you discern the identity of space, which also also means to discern. It's also positive or negative value nature relationship to itself. Science is obfuscated. I'm not even a scientist, but I'm an expert on the nature of English grammar, which is training. The bond to matter, no matter where it is positive. Its relationship to the rest of space will only stay positive. And progressively. That progression onto the identity of space will only stay positive. The difference between positive or negative value nature as our identity is a quality of diffusion. We are. Now, as modern nations, from a semi-ancient trap, all as roles, identity, suit, and ties counter to we don't understand. Physical delusions and crime methods with psychology, inter-science, inter-industry, and with areas. With our nation's police in collusion with overt criminal enterprises, recorded blaming on others on self, recorded tactically pseudo-educated victim predators. This is a crime method recorded. Again, there are proofs that there's a I don't know if it was a skit or it was real life, but there was a guy from Saturday Night Live said he's Jewish and he's from Staten Island. If you could look into it, because there's a Fred Gruzet associated with Staten Island, associated with interbranch actors and doctors with sex offenders, and with crimes with religious spots, and with identity thefts and inter-campuses crimes with identity thefts, with inter-branch actors and their family members. Also recorded with inter-branch actors using Facebook and their family members to stack illusions. They're usually making also identity crimes with them making fake Facebook pages. And I know it's the same people because they repeated language that only had been confessed in court and online, tied to sex crime roles with a principal sex offender just sentenced, but more recorded and confessed involved because of how also there were dozens of recorded criminal uses of foreign and domestic agencies and their family members also recorded and confessed involved with forging names and with identity theft crimes and with crimes with doctors against the same women and kids that they're involved with the sexual abuses of through time, and still inherently, actively, and progressively further recorded. They're recorded pretending allegations are allegations, also in relationship to them coercing and maintaining the fact-cheating nature of like undercovers with strippers and hookers on off campuses, with the interbranch cliques, drug cliques and stuff like that. And I don't have anything to do with them. Like Chris Walters, he also confessed and recorded that he'd been directed to invite me to a wedding tied to his roles with interbranch child predators of various natures. I don't know if I'm sure he doesn't know about the sex offenders, but he knows about part of that. In other words, the roles hiding because they were all engineered with like cocaine roles with investigators and stuff like that. They have to hide lies, and then they see questions through them like that. They direct them to no strangers. In other words, Chris Walters is a stranger who I only know from him being when he was a kid. He was recorded and confessed involved with abused by a Dillon family. Also recorded and confessed with crimes with my past neighbors, extended family members' sons associated with crimes with an untimely death on Trinity College, and identity crimes with people from my town who were stacking databases, spreading rumors with me on Trinity, tied to Alicia's, also interstate, tied to Staten Island and like New York criminal justice, like prison cliques and criminal justice training with CCSU, tied to database crimes with them of various natures on off campus, and they have on off campus relationship to undercovers and people with training of police, and they pretend that their roles with that are just that, but they're really being used to cover up lie progressions tied to the roles from database illusion stacking with interbranch families, with a method that was keeping them criminally foreign influence through other nations, overt criminal enterprises unrealized and legalized victim predators through pseudo-sciences, areas maintained, space maintained, state maintained, collusion with other nations. So to the fact-cheating nature, presidents said, please fix the fake news. Fix the fake news. They don't fix the fake news. They're pretending it's about money because they're recorded consciously involved with other natures of crime with it. In other words, rather than a report on an O'Brien family recorded and confessed by them involved with crimes with both ends of the schools, they're using the shootings and stuff like that to call in complaints with cliques that were associated with crimes with the sales of these guns through time, and with the people pretending that they had conversations with me with doctors that pretended such illusions in databases and things like that. With the things they repeat in the news about predators and stuff like that, they're pretending hate against people they don't even know in courts that are recorded consciously, sequence shifting, tied to and as Connecticut people interbranch over and foreign recorded with collusion with the area through time and with databases, and then with trade center context, and then with predicate acts since. And see, these are people that need to pretend they knew me in the past now, tied to my neighbors, as his family members tied. And he needs to pretend, have debates about overall, instead of using finite and true sequence. In other words, they need to pretend they believe convictions interbranch that they can't put on paper, because they know they were already sequence shifting and attaching me to others that I don't know at all, that I don't even think are related to him. Like a Joshua Julian, also recorded and confessed by one of the sex offenders, proven and further recorded with the schools, tied to it, with the Facebook crime roles, even with the motives of the Wethersfield police chief and his roles with sex crime acts, with the interbranch actors, using the Facebook and using the kids with interbranch family members with their identity theft crime roles and acts already in the past that they had to hide with telling lies with the news. Also, you recorded, they've been pretending I had fake relationships to medical doctors since I was a kid. They told the news to say that. I never had a mental, I swear to God, under oath, never had a mental diagnosis relationship to doctors, they said. WFSB recorded and confessed involved with drugs and with like foreign and domestic, with the corner of the Highcrest School, both corners. There's a woman with red hair, non-verbally confirmed and recorded and confessed by interbranch actors involved with her daughter too, with soccer, I guess. There's also intercity with these people. Anthony Yagman too, online, recorded and confessed. I had nothing to do with these people in my life. Anthony Yagman also recorded and confessed, involved with the Lethe family, with the doctors, with the sex crime acts rules, with the databases, identity crime rules against the victims who pretending to be for them, intercity.